to what is the 19th ordinary meeting of the 177th session of the Literary and Scientific Society. Oh boy, where do we even begin with what we have got up to this week? We've had something on every single day of this week, and it's still continuing into the weekend. It's a week that would give Craig David a run for his money, to be perfectly honest. On Monday, we had our BP sparring sessions in preparation for our Queen's IV, which is coming back after a long-term hiatus this weekend, and we're very excited to compete in that and welcome schools and universities from across Ireland and the UK to come along to Belfast. Then on Tuesday, we had the pleasure of welcoming former Irish ambassador to the United States, the UK, Malaysia and Germany, Daniel Mulhall, to our society in what was an amazing lit talk. And then last night, as many of you will know, we had our infamous drunk debates. I am glad to see that you guys have all beat the hangover and managed to bring yourselves into our chamber tonight. We of course have our great debate tonight. And we also have coming up our Conversazione, another hallmark event of our society. I would recommend that you all sign up for that, because not only do you get the perks of coming for a great night's crack, a nice excuse to dress up, a bit of wine to be had, a bit of conversation as well, it's in the name, but also you will get a very nice and tidy looking Conversazione card. So please sign up for that if you haven't already. Now, I'm sure you have plenty of questions. Trust me, last night at around 3:30 in the morning, plenty of interesting questions were shared, but the great opportunity for you all now is that it's time for President's Questions. This is your chance to ask me, your President, any question that your mind can come up with, but of course with the caveats. There are to be no questions about my politics and no questions about my sex life or lack thereof. So, do we have any President's Questions in the house tonight? Yes, Hugh.
Yeah, just wondering, if you were to make the 7 wonders of the world, but you can only use locations within the UK and Ireland, what 7 locations would you choose?
Oh, now that you've limited me to the UK and Ireland, that's really thrown a spanner in the works, because I was going to say, out of all like the wonders of the world, I'm a pyramid skeezer myself, to be honest. Now, I know that Egyptian boatmen have been trying to say that the pyramids are not a wonder of the world, but I'd say that they're living in denial, to be perfectly honest. But the 7 wonders of the world in the UK and Ireland. So first of all, I'm going to go for I think that should definitely be one of the wonders of the world. Do you agree, Tom? I'm going to go for the Eurospar in grey steel, the Giant's Causeway, Luke Hoyle's house, Ballykelly, which is the centre of the universe, of course, and definitely exists. What else? We'll say the Blarney Stone, why not? And then to top it all off, we'll go for the McMurdy Hall, for being the home of our great society. Any other President's Questions? Yes, Rana?
Would you rather be mobbed or have your torso spiked?
I did not research this one, so I am going to say mogged and hope that that's the correct choice. I'll have to be accused of mogging at the podium before, to be fair, during the debates. Any other President's Questions? Yes, Jonathan?
Has the President ever actually been to
I sure have. And that is where I learned to pronounce it, in the gift shop of Glenveigh Google. Do I have any other President's Questions? Yes?
Mr. President, would you rather fight 100 dog-sized horses or 1 horse-sized dog?
Oh. Horses are quite powerful, hence the term horsepower. So I would rather fight 1 horse-sized duck. Any other President's Questions? Yes, Louise?
What did Bethany make you for breakfast today?
Bethany actually didn't make me breakfast today. Technically, what I had for breakfast was a kebab from Frango at 2 a.m. in the morning. But no, I thought, because tonight's debate, it's a patriotic debate, I thought I'd research, what kind of United States patriotic foods could I eat. And I had sheep. Specifically, I had female sheep for breakfast. And I actually was encouraged then to write a piece about it in what I'm calling my USA. Yeah, I know that one was pretty bad. But I'll not pull the wool over your eyes. Thank you, Hugh. I'll not pull the wool over your eyes much longer. No, in actual fact, what I did have for breakfast, so I had breakfast in quite a weird fashion, where I did a press up, a squat, and then I jumped as high in the air as I could, while I ate these green kind of vegetables in a pod, and they had the branding of the third Vice President of the United States. So I had bird peas. There you go. And like Hamilton, I very much missed that shot. Do I have any other president's questions? Yes, Michael?
Seeing as you said it was your favourite question to be asked, could you tell us a joke?
Could I tell you a joke? Well, shall I tell you all the joke that I told last night at the very end of my speech, which I'm amazed I remember. So I decided that I wanted to marry my phone. I wanted to make it my Wi-Fi. So I gave it a ring. Well, it turns out it was already engaged, which is a shame. I thought we had a really good connection. I thought all the signals were there, but alas, I suppose I shouldn't get so hung up about it. Any other president's questions? Did that one ring a bell? Yes, Josh?
Considering the topic of tonight and its US-centric focus, is there a president that you would most enjoy to be a civil servant under?
Oh, that I would most enjoy to be a civil servant under. If it means I get to meet them, I would love to be a civil servant under Teddy Roosevelt because he just seems like a great character. I mean, getting shot during the speech and continuing on, fair play. Any other president's questions? Yes, Ray?
So like, how much money would it take for you to eat a sponge?
I'd say put enough cream and sprinkles on it, do it for free, probably pay you for it as well. I mean, Franco's last night wasn't far off, to be perfectly honest. Yes, we have one from Luke.
So given the fact that the IV is coming, and I am having to open my doors and indeed my heart to UCD, they're coming to stay with me for 2 nights, I would wonder if you could comment on the state of detente that exists between our two great nations, well, one great nation. I wonder if maybe we should be having that sort of level of civility with them.
Well, to have such a level of civility would suggest that both parties are civilised. And I would draw your attention back to their IV, look, and how much fun you had with that. Yes, Henry? Oh, 2 Henrys?
That was an accident, I swear. I'm getting rid of it.
That is the last thing. That is the last thing that the LNH will see before they go to bed at night to make sure that they've got their crash applications in. But yes, go ahead, Henry.
Yeah, just on the subject of like university and society beef. So according to well-known but confidential sources, the Hiss and the Phil are like massively fighting each other over like Euro spots and stuff. And they've taken to our comment section on our ID post notifications to declare war on each other, with competitions convener Adam Mazur declaring superiority over the Hiss on Facebook like 2 hours ago. So, do you have any comments on the Hiss Phil beef? Do you prefer one from the other?
I'm going to say that we prefer the Hiss because we're doing a collaboration with them coming up in March. So yes, I'm going to choose the Hiss. Yes, Jonathan?
Mr. President, we've spoken a lot about the sort of state of international relations, or rather inter-society relations. So with that in mind, who on your council is your Henry Kissinger?
Who likes Henry Kissinger on my council? Ella, you quite like Henry Kissinger, don't you? That's true.
I was distracted, and then Jonathan had said, "Do you like Henry Kissinger?" And I was like, he could have said, "Do you like something? It's only even more evil than Henry Kissinger." And I would have said, "Yeah," because I was at the end of my tether with Jonathan Massey. Sorry, that's not like an official quote or something.
See, in summary, it would be Ella because she loves Henry Kissinger. Any other president's questions? Yes, Calvin?
What's your favourite Microsoft Word?
What's my favourite Microsoft Word font? Controversially, and for all my speeches, James will know this, it's size 14 Comic Sans. Anytime in the speech. I know. Yes, Rana?
Going off font, what's your favourite Microsoft Suite applications?
Microsoft Suite application, I would say all the ones with the tabs, because that's the one I excel in the most. Any other president's questions? Yes, Luke?
Which football manager do you believe would be the best debater?
Oh, I think Mourinho would be an excellent debater, to be honest. Like, he's just, some of the clips in the press conferences, controversial at the moment though. Yes, James?
Donald Trump didn't quite declare war on Iran. My question to you, Mr. President, is when are you declaring war on France?
Well, the great news is, for all of you that missed it, we already have declared war on France last night and shall continue to do so. Détente is a French word, however I'm refusing to recognise that. Yes, Maeve?
Based off your quote earlier, what's your thoughts on Hamilton the musical?
I love Hamilton. I listened to Hamilton when it was on Disney Plus during lockdown and it was amazing. So yes, big Hamilton fan. Yes, Mark, I know you're one too.
Mr. President, do you agree that Mr. Secretary has to try that Welsh name I cannot even try to pronounce? He has to do that in minutes next.
Yeah, why not? I mean, coming from like the same secretary that brought you a mispronunciation of Charlie XCX somehow, I'm really excited.
That was not a mispronunciation. I just said it slowly so everybody could understand.
Of course. As you will with this Welsh village name.
Well,
in a couple of minutes.
I don't know. Is it Welsh? Village name.
Any other president's questions? Yes?
Would you rather be the letters that lead this trust or only be able to talk like Pitbull for the rest of your life?
I would definitely only, I guess one of them supposed to be a bad thing. I'd definitely only be able to talk like Pitbull for the rest of my life. And by the way my hairline's going, that might do me well as an impersonation act in the future. So I'm hedging my bets there. Yes, Luke?
Do you follow the account QB name? And if so, what has been your favourite submission?
Sorry, I think Beggar's trying to pick up balls here at the bottom of the table. What was that?
Do you follow the Instagram account QB meme? And if so, what is your favourite submission so far?
QB meme? Yes, I do actually. There's a lot of crazy things that goes on with QB meme, to be honest. I enjoy the Orin lore being added to on the most recent QB meme edition, so yes, that's what I'll have to say. Yes, Louise?
What is your take on the Orin from the whole Lynn situation?
I think he needs to get his act together. Don't know what he's playing at. However, if he can do Crash for us over the weekend, we'll very much take it, yes. Any other president's questions? Yes, Mark?
Jesus, classic. Watching out for breakfast.
Were you not listening?
No.
Well, I will not force the House to either hear one of my puns again or be forced to listen to another one of my puns. Although I did also have a One Piece fry, but I'll not rehash that joke again. So, do we have any other president's questions before we move on? Going once, going twice. Oh, Henry, yes.
Do you identify as a chud?
This word chud got thrown about a lot last night. I still don't fully understand what it is, so I'm going to say no to hedge my bets. And on that, okay, Josh, last question.
Considering the American-centric focus of tonight, who is your favourite WWE wrestler?
Oh, my favourite WWE wrestler would have to be. I always loved Rey Mysterio. I had the action figure of him, although when he took off his mask, I was very disappointed. But yeah, have to be.
Would he not have that?
I'll leave that one for you to decide, Josh. As we move on to private members' business, so this is your chance as members of the House to bring up anything that you've seen in the news, anything of particular interest that you would like to gauge the rest of the members of the House's opinion on. So, do I have any private members' business in the House tonight? Yes, Hugh.
Yes. As I'm sure most people are aware, the government dented by elections today. Obviously, I'm very keen on the bookkeeper from Reform winning. I think that would be very good for the country for a man who consumes literature at such a rate to become an MP. So I was just wondering how the rest of the House felt, especially which way you think the election will go, because so far it's a three-way dead heat.
Yes, anyone on this election? Yes, Luke?
Just like to comment on the fact that you delete the book. I think it's probably the only thing that Ford would probably do with the book anyway.
Thank you. Anyone else on this? You've all gone very quiet. Yes, Elliot?
You might disparage the Tory party's capabilities with books, but I've read a lot of bad autobiographies, so they've got that department on lockdown.
Thank you. Do we have any more points on that? Yes, Hugh?
Yeah, they also put the country in lockdown.
Do we have another? Yes?
From yesterday, the 25th of February 2026, the new British passport law came into place, which means that now all British and Irish citizens travelling between mainland Ireland and the United Kingdom must carry a valid passport, which is a change to previous rules. Does the House have any opinions on this in regards to the common travel area?
Thank you. Anyone? Passport, please.
Not in regards to the common travel area, but just in general, I think that this is a very irritating law because I I'm a dual British citizen through one of my parents, and my younger siblings are too, but I am the only one that needed a British passport because I wanted to move to Belfast. And so now my 2 younger siblings are having to go hastily through the entire process of getting British passports, basically just so that they can get into the country. And so I don't know, I kind of resent this law just because there's a lot of people who would have had no interest in having a British passport before, but just because it kind of puts them at a strange disadvantage if one of your parents is British and so you're technically a British citizen. Like, I know both of my siblings, they didn't even know that until their parents were like, hey, actually, by the way, you can't enter the UK anymore unless you do this.
Thank you. Anyone else on that? Yes, Alexander?
Asking for myself, if that's true, how am I going to get home? Like, if I don't actually have a passport, I'm going to get on the plane home. Is there a workaround?
Would anyone like to give Alexander advice on this? It's appropriate that you actually spoke on this one because, of course, you've paid your fine.
Yeah.
So you've quite literally passport to speak about the passport. Yes, Rana?
So technically, you don't need to have a passport, but you can have it's a piece of document that proves that you have the right to be a full citizen and you're a full citizen, but that costs about £500, give or take. Don't quote me on that. So it's just cheaper to get a passport, that's just like the easy way to do it. Yeah.
Thank you, Rana. Yes, ma'am?
In the last few times when I was going back to England, I haven't been checked for my ID, which is kind of concerning, but hey, you might just be fine.
Yeah, it'll be grand. Joshua?
In response, you would have to contact whatever embassy you're so if I was so if you're a British citizen in America, didn't have your passport, you would have to contact the British embassy and they would get you temporary paperwork with that.
But I am in Britain. How does that work?
Well,
You two can sort this out, I think, after. Yes, Jonathan.
So it's if you're travelling between Northern Ireland, if you're going Northern Ireland to the UK, it's still within the UK, so you'll need ID but not a passport. But the change is that previously, if you travelled from Ireland to the mainland UK, you would be treated as a domestic arrival and therefore wouldn't have any passport checks. And that has been changed so that there are now passport requirements to travel between the Republic of Ireland and the mainland UK in what is further breaking down of sort of international agreements in our time.
I must say, private members' business came a long way from being a food advice column to now giving advice about passports. Yes, Beth?
I think this reeks of Dublin Airport, which still makes you go through passport security, regardless of the common travel area. But I do think it's great for those of us who do not have driver's licenses, and I've been on the passport for the entire time. So yeah, but hey ho. I don't look British here anyway, so.
Anyone else on that? We'll have one more piece of private members' business then. Yes, your hand was up at the start, Luke.
I just want to know what the House's thoughts will be on Trump's State of the Union address, considering this is about American politics tonight, and how it actually was the longest State of the Union address as well.
Yes, very topical. Anyone on the State of the Union? Yes, Ellen.
Sorry, I didn't speak first. Regardless of Trump's State of the Union, my favorite part of the State of the Union is the designated survivor bill. And I wonder who Trump picked as his designated survivor. Like, who in the cabinet would have been president if they bombed the State of the Union yesterday. So if you don't know what that is, one person in the American government has to stay in the White House in case everyone else gets murdered by a terrorist attack, which is a bit grim, but it's a fun concept to think like who would be the last person to be president.
Henry?
I know this is kind of cheating because it's a president's question, but who would be your designated survivor?
I think, yeah, no, it wouldn't be on council because it's assuming that we all die. Like, that is the same premise. So I would have to say, in recognition of all the dinners, I'd pick Beth as my designated survivor. Yeah. Anyone else on that piece of private members' business? Yes, Beth?
I mean, based on how the government is running, I fully believe they might have forgotten to put a designated survivor. There's fully a chance that there was no designated survivor in case of emergency.
Thank you. Yes, Joshua?
In terms of designated survivor, there's really only one option. Marco Rubio, he's already like the king of like 15 different countries under our control.
Nice. Yeah, he's got so many jobs on his plate at the minute. Yes, you.
I did find it interesting that during the State of the Union, Trump announced that his plan to get rid of income tax entirely and replace it with tariffs, which he still thinks is levied against other countries, and they pay them. I was just wondering how's his thoughts on that.
Yes, expanding.
Just a quick response to Ellis putting out a designated survivor. Let's be honest, it's probably RFK because he would have given the entire Congress measles otherwise.
Thank you, yes, Abram.
The actual factual designated survivor is the Veteran Affairs Secretary, Doug Collins.
Any thoughts on that, or the identity has been removed?
So when the designated survivor, that is the head of Veterans Affairs, becomes president, the veterans can still not receive any VA aid.
I will say that my tuition check has gone down because of the VA now. So I will say that.
Anyone else on that? Rana?
I just want to finish it off.
Go for it.
So, a Guinness cake, right?
Back to the pressing matters that we always do with the members' business.
I'm kind of running out of desserts with alcohol in them, so would a Guinness cake be considered alcoholic? Because I remember someone bought their kid a Guinness cake and the kid got drunk on it.
Okay, interesting. Anyone on the Guinness cake? Can you split the G on the Guinness cake? That's what I want to know. You know.
Cut it up from the middle.
Anyone on that? Yes, Beth?
I mean, it brings into question the consistency of the cake, because obviously Guinness is a very, sits very heavy in the stomach, if anybody's ever been forced to chug one. So it couldn't be like a sponge, right? So is it stodgy? Is it kind of double worse?
It's like top of Guinness cake, I don't know.
Should be. That sounds nasty as hell. Guinness belongs with meats.
No.
Yeah, like a Guinness pie.
A Guinness pie, interesting concept. Yes, Elliot?
How is the Guinness incorporated into the cake?
You just cook it and
Season. Here. I feel like I'm in the writer's room for season 2 of House of Guinness. This is great here. Yeah, all fans who should not know. Yes, Ellie.
The whole point of a Guinness cake is that the flavour of the riches of the Guinness is the thing that sticks, and then all the alcohol is burned away when it's being cooked. So it makes a very tasty, yummy, rich, lovely cake that doesn't taste like Guinness really, but just is nice.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, thank you. Yes, Ellie.
I'm just going on the pressing food matters. As people know, I work in Marks and Spencer's, and we've just released tiramisu hot cross buns. And I know Mr. Tiramisu is not here today, but would that be considered coffee?
Interesting. I'll have a word with you afterwards if you get staff discount as well from M&S. Ella?
I 100% need that staff discount and the location of Marks and Spencer's, but also because I'm a big Marks and Spencer's fan. But I've had the tiramisu hot cross buns, and I wouldn't count them as alcoholic, but it's much nicer than the red velvet ones they put out.
Yes.
But they initially seem horrible, and then you put them in the microwave for a minute, and they're lovely. They're really nice. But I would think neither is alcoholic. I think every time we have this discussion, I realize who is the lightweight in the room. People can get drunk off as a drink.
Thank you. And any more points on that? I'll let you finish. Ron, yes.
Finish it off. I did not like speckled eggs cookies by Marks and Spencer's. It wasn't good.
Okay, there you go. So you can work on that for next time, and that brings us on very nicely to the minutes from last week's debate, which was "This House has no faith in the Labour government." So I'd like to invite a man who's about to horribly mispronounce a Welsh village, Mr. Secretary, to the podium, please. Oh, so do I have to say it now?
Yes.
Okay, right. Clan Vai U Pooth Gwyn Goof Throon Drew Buth Lyn T. Just give me a second. Sealy O Go Go Go. There you go. I feel like we've done an exorcist there or something.
Speaker pissed.
Okay, on to the members of the House, on February 19th, 2026, the Queen's University Belfast Literary and Scientific Society convened for the 19th Ordinary Meeting of the 177 sessions and made the motion, this House has no faith in the Labour government. First one on the President's questions were from Beth Lyman, who said, "What horse do you love to beat?"
Instead of saying his horse, he said Eurovision and Liverpool. Ryan asked who would you rather win the Premier League, he said Manchester City. Ray asked what you have for breakfast. He then went into a very long thing about a Labour cafe opening in Belfast. You enjoyed freshly squeezed half-time orange and the Prescott punch. Matthew said, told the Elliot Dickey story about how Elliot drank bleach and ended up in the hospital. It's a long story. He then asked, would you recommend bleach? Daniel said, no. He was then asked, which cleaning product would you recommend as mouthwash? Daniel said, mold spray, as he found out apparently. Luke said, what is the best excuse for not going out? He said that he says that he's the only one that has a key to the house. John asked what your favourite national cuisine was. You said a spice bag. And Finton suggested moving capital from Dublin to Kildare. You said that it doesn't matter because the UK capital will be Ballykelly. Prior members for this, we heard from Hugh Child, who brought up Prince Andrew being arrested, or Andrew Mountbatten, as he is now. Emily said it was his birthday, which makes it all the better. John said he needs to keep him in custody a bit longer. Matthew Sprout said he was too scared to go into the prison cell as his friend died in one. And Jack gave us a bit of history and said the last Duke of York was drowned in a barrel of wine. George Farner said that there was many reports of cancellations. Ron then said, I love being woke. And we then had the Toy Story dialogue. Votes on prior opinion, we had 30 votes to the proposition, 10 votes to the opposition and 25 abstentions, meaning the proposition carried and the motion passed. First on the proposition, we heard from Luella, who said faith is more about party labels. It has effects all over the world. When a government demonstrates uncertainty, the people lose trust. Faith requires political courage and U-turns undermine this. For many voters, foreign policy decisions are important and trust can be lost over things like this. First in opposition, we heard from Tom Cormack, who said, I come to you a changed man. I used to use the title Tory Tom with pride. I had my doubts, but now I fully support Sir Keir Starmer, my saviour. He then looked at his teammates with fear and said, do I actually have to do this? They looked at him and said, yes. He said, we had it coming and we gave Starmer the mandate to do what he does today. Just as Starmer doesn't know how to solve the problem, neither does the public. People from Ulster are allowed to vote. Will they solve the problem? Probably not. Will we follow in the footsteps of Greece? Probably. Our economy is worse than France, and if you have 6 massive breakups in 10 years, the problem is you. Moderation is the only solution, and we need a steady hand to see us through the storm. Second on the proposition, we heard from Tiernan Smith, who said he wrote 2 versions of the speech, depending on whether Keir Starmer made it to the speech or not. He said that they can't decide and they won't make decisions. He said Jackie Weaver had more authority than Keir Starmer has over his cabinet. He then did the Margaret Thatcher impression and said, no, Donald, he's very naughty. I won't do the voice. He then said he's losing faith in Labour doesn't mean that selecting Conservatives is the alternative. He said, we don't need faith, we need a vision. Well, Elliot, you like this. He said the apartheid regime was propped up by his policies. He said Elliot Dickey would know all about that. He then forgot all his lines and said, vote for me and sat down. Second in opposition, we heard from Alexander, who gained an immediate port fine. Somehow. He said Labour holds up human rights and does not support war crimes. Then Iraq was mentioned, and he said that Tony Blair had nothing to do with it, but it's okay because they were simply fighting to destroy weapons of mass destruction. Then there was a rejected legacy bill from the Tory government, which is a positive. Starmer's Labour has delivered transport, healthcare and housing, and the most notable thing is a machete approach to the jumped-up little Hitlers who are the planning officials in England. Third in proposition, we have from Matthew, who said when Comrade Keir took the steps, he said judge my actions. Well, we haven't, and not even Jim could fix that economy. Rachel from the council announced the family farm tax and alienated all of the farmers. This just goes to show their complete incompetence. Most farmers do not have 1 million in cash but do possess assets. Therefore, their options are to sell off the land, livestock or machinery. All will reduce profits and leave grandchildren destitute. All they've done is killed a farmer. Zach Polanski is on equal levels with Comrade Keir, he said, and instead of hypnotising women's breasts to make them larger, maybe he should hypnotise the economy. Third in opposition, we have Boyd, who said they inherited a mess, and this state is a symbol for the Tory government. The main thing they gave was all-time high borrowing costs. Labour's put in a very difficult position. Now, listening to the positives, he said GB Energy was set up and 750,000 children are now in free breakfast clubs. All of these things are great, and it's representative of the country that Labour's created. But have they done enough? No. Will they do more? Yes. That is what Labour is all about. Finally, for the proposition, Finton said that he's prefacing that he's not Tory or Reform. He said it's fair to say that as Lyndon Johnson died in Vietnam, Labour died in Clapton. It's time Labour did something. They have huge mandates and yet refuse to make meaningful change. We were told there would be an end to sleaziness of Labour government, and yet all we've seen is a simple moral failure in abandoning the Crown subjects and Chagos. On fractured backbench, she urged the Prime Minister to take some advice from Bertie O'Hearn. If any of you challenge me, I will fucking rivet you. Referencing Matthew, he says,
Point fine.
No, that's minutes. It doesn't count. It doesn't count. Referencing Matthew, he said, we killed the farm, and that's all. The people will forgive mistakes, but never incompetence. If the Tories can make it through 3 leaders, why can't Labour get rid of Keir? And finally, to close to the Labour from Emily Carter, he said, beginning with the promise, Speaker's brief was a trust premiership, she started rebutting the proposition. We have Tory Tom on the opposition, and Mega Tory, who's government room in Britain. Her family has been voting Labour for decades in their West Yorkshire area. The granddad was born and raised in Liverpool and has said mean things to Thatcher to her face. They voted Conservative once in a moment of clarity, but have voted Labour ever since. Keir Starmer said she had more faith in Polanski than she does in anyone else. How much leeway has Bojo been given for lockdown parties? And faith in Labour is like faith in Liverpool. You only do it to spite Everton. Then we moved on to voting speakerability, where we had 37 votes to the proposition, 19 votes to the opposition, and 13 abstentions, meaning that the proposition carried and the motion passed. Can I take minutes as read?
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for those minutes, and you will be claiming that bottle of Portgaf off you after you give Bethany her £13.50. Moving on to the vote on prior opinion. So the reason we're all here tonight for this wonderful debate, just to remind you all, the motion for tonight is this House believes the US is beyond saving. So can I have all those who'd like to vote for the proposition on vote on prior opinion and do believe the US is beyond saving to raise their hands now, please? Yes. And can I have all those who disagree with that motion and would like to vote for the opposition on the vote on prior opinion to raise their hands now, please?
You rose again or you don't?
Yes. And finally, can I have all those who would like to abstain from the vote on prior opinion to raise their hands now, please?
Oh, we're so good.
17. Mr. Secretary, can I have the results from the vote on prior opinion, please?
Yes, with 15 votes for the proposition, 35 votes for the opposition, and 17 abstentions, the opposition carries and the motion falls.
Get kicked off, just a quick run through of the rules. The speakers will take it in turns, proposition and opposition, to come to the podium and do their 7-minute speeches. The first and the last minute of their speeches are protected time, which means for those 5 minutes in between, they have unprotected time. This leaves them open to points of information. Your chance as members of the House and their adversaries on the other side of the table's chance to question them on their points in real time. To offer a POA, simply raise your hand, especially to my friends at the back as well, and project your voice saying on that point, POA or point of information. It is then to the discretion of the speaker as to whether they accept or decline your point. Please keep those points to a maximum of 15 seconds and of course leave 15 seconds in between the offering of a POA. Otherwise that's barracking, and I will swiftly let you know with my gavel. We also, which has already been alluded to tonight, have a rule about swearing. Madam Vice President.
Yes, if you swear in a speech or any time during the debate, as Baker did during the minutes, you owe the House of Commons report. Port fine has been paid from Alexander. Thank you for paying it timely. We have outstanding port fines now from Baker, Rosa, Emmy, and Fenton, who I will be harassing this weekend to don't swear at us.
Thank you. And with that, I'd like to open our debate by inviting first to open the case for the proposition, Jonathan to the podium, please.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to start with the French. But it's a fitting start given that that's where America started too, with the French. France has had 5 republics. The first republic failed. And so after Napoleon came in, they had a second republic. The second republic also failed. And then there was a third republic, a fourth republic, and now we're on the 5th French republic. And many people within France say that there needs to be a 6th French republic. Because the French see the Constitution, they see the Republic as a tool of public governance. And this is the fundamental difference between France and America. What is the United States? You may be tempted to believe tonight that the United States are the people within the country. But unlike most other countries, this would be a fallacy. The United States is its systems of power, its institutions, its constitution, its founding documents. Unlike France, who views these things as a tool, America views them as their basis of existence. America isn't a nation in the traditional sense. Traditionally, a nation is a group of people who share a common history, a very common culture, a common language. America has never had these things. America was always an amalgamation. To quote the 1940s American propaganda film from the World War II, the question in America is not whether to tolerate minorities. America is minorities. And so America is unlike every other country insofar as it is not a traditional nation. It is a collection of peoples shared with one common ideal and a common system of power, a system of institution, and a system of governance. But now the US system is so broken it needs to be made new. It is beyond saving. We need a second American republic. This system will not fix itself. I'd like to quote at this point a friend of mine who is a Republican, who said in a sort of almost gleeful way after Trump won, "My friend, you've mistaken yourself. America's not a democracy, it's a republic." And in many ways he's right. America is a shockingly undemocratic country. Gerrymandering is still completely legal. It's a winner-takes-all system, divided along two party lines where you have a binary choice between the people funded by the billionaires and the other people also funded by the billionaires who also kind of care about gay rights a little bit. That's not really a choice at all. No. There's money, there's lobbying, and it's shaken the system to its core. Donald Trump isn't the threat, he is the symptom of a deeper issue. There is a decline in America happening. There's a drift over time towards authoritarianism, towards fascism. And at this point, I would like to read to you from 1955's They Thought They Were Free, the Germans, 1933 to 1945, a series of interviews with Germans who lived through the rise of Nazism. The dictatorship and the whole process of coming into being was above all else about diverting. To live in this process is absolutely not to be able to notice it. Each step was so small, so inconsequential, so well explained or on occasion regretted that unless one were detached from the whole process from the beginning, unless one understood what the whole thing was in principle, one no more saw it developing from day to day than a farmer in his field sees the corn growing. One day it is above his head. Uncertainty is an important factor, and instead of reducing over time, it grows. You speak privately to your colleagues, some of whom certainly feel as you do, but what do they say? They say it's not that bad, or they say you're seeing things, or they say you're an alarmist. And you are an alarmist. You're saying this must lead to this, and you can't prove it. These are the beginnings, yes, but how do you know for sure when you don't know the end? And how do you know or even surmise the end? If the last and worst act of the regime had come immediately after the first and smallest, thousands, yes, millions would have been sufficiently shocked. Let us say if the gassing of the Jews in 1943 had come immediately after the German firm stickers in the windows of non-Jewish shops in 1933. But of course, this isn't the way it happens. In between come hundreds of little steps, some imperceptible, each preparing you not to be so shocked by the next. Step C is not so much worse than Step B, and if you didn't make a stand at Step B, why should you make a stand at Step C and so on to Step D? And one day, too late, your principles, if you were ever sensible of them, rush in upon you. The burden of self-deception has grown too heavy, and some minor incident, in my case a little boy, hardly more than a baby, saying, "Jewish swine," collapses it all at once, and you see that everything has changed, and changed completely under your nose. The world you live in, your nation, your people, is not the world you were born in at all. The forms are there, all untouched, all reassuring. The houses, the shops, the jobs, the meal times, the visits, the concerts, the cinema, the holidays. But the spirit which you never noticed because you made the lifelong mistake of identifying it with the forms, is changed. Now you live in a world of hate and fear, and the people who hate and fear do not even know it themselves. When everyone is transformed, no one is transformed. Now you live in a system which rules without responsibility, even to God. The system could not have intended this in the beginning, but in order to sustain itself, it was compelled to go all the way. Suddenly it all comes down at once. You see what you are, you see what you've done, or more accurately, what you haven't done. For that was all that was required of most of us, that we do nothing. And I'm not saying that America now is in the same stage as Nazi Germany in 1939. Of course not. But I am saying the process is shockingly similar. The process is worryingly similar, and the rhetoric coming from American political leadership, in particular the rhetoric coming from Donald Trump, is concerningly close. He talks about purifying. He talks about how foreigners are poisoning the blood of America. He lies, and people not only believe his lies, they know he's lying, but they trust him anyway. At least he's honest about his lying. January 6th, the Munich beer hall push. At the Munich beer hall push, Hitler launched a failed coup. He wasn't held accountable by the judicial system in Germany, and he went on to mobilize the right and commit horrific atrocities. Trump also launched a failed coup. He also hasn't been held accountable by the judicial system. And he's also mobilizing the right, using right-wing talking points, rhetoric, and fear. I pray the House considers these shocking similarities when asking themselves, is America beyond saving? Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan, for that very fine speech. And now to open the case for the opposition, I'd like to invite Ollie to the podium, please.
Mr. President, members of the proposition, fellow members of the opposition, and members of the House, I rise in firm and unapologetic opposition to the motion, though I think I might have walked into the wrong debate on Nazi Germany. Because to declare the United States of America as beyond saving is bold, it's dramatic, it's cinematic. It's the political equivalent of stubbing your toe and immediately drafting your will. Painful, yes, but I wouldn't say it's terminal quite yet. If we're measuring beyond saving by division, by scandal or dysfunction, then the United States has been beyond saving since about the 4th of July 1776. In the 1860s, the country literally tore itself in two, not metaphorically, but physically, with a catastrophic war over slavery. That almost seems beyond saving. In the 1930s, the banks collapsed, unemployment soared, people queued for their food. In response, I assure you, the proposition's Instagram notes would have read, "Liberal democracy is so over." In the 1960s, cities burned, leaders were assassinated, and millions marched in the streets. The headlines again apocalyptic. And yet the country does not quite evaporate into dust. Why? Because these crises force reform. The Great Depression gave rise to social safety nets. Civil rights protests produced landmark equality legislation. Even Watergate strengthened oversight of executive power. Because America's pattern is not one of smooth stability. It is one of loud and messy correction. It is a country quite literally born of revolution, born of dysfunction. The proposition tonight see dysfunction and say it's broken. We see dysfunction and say it's just another Thursday at the Litterific. The proposition say that liberal democracy is so over. I say we are so back. For if this is rock bottom, it's a very familiar rock indeed. Now let's talk about the today. Yes, the USA is polarised, deeply, painfully. Thanksgiving is transformed from once a uniting holiday to one akin to a contact sport.
What an interest.
No, but polarisation is not proof of democratic death. In fact, I'd argue that democracies argue, loudly, constantly, sometimes in all caps. Authoritarian states don't look chaotic because disagreement is silenced. Democracies look chaotic because disagreement is encouraged. The fact that Americans protest, they vote in record numbers, they litigate against their own government, they organise grassroots campaign, and argue endlessly online is not a sign of decay. It's the civic muscle being flexed. Uncomfortable, yes. Noisy, absolutely. But that is the point. Political engagement is rising, especially among young people.
No. When turnout increases and when activism expands, and when institutions are challenged in the courts rather than toppled in coups, that's not a country beyond saving. That's a country simply fighting over its direction. And fighting over the route you take is very different from giving up on your journey altogether. My core problem with the motion tonight is that it pretends to be something that it's not. Analytical. It is instead emotional. To say the United States is beyond saving assumes three things. The decline is inevitable, the reform is impossible, and that 330 million people are politically powerless. And all three are wrong. Nations are not your old Samsung Galaxy. They do not hit some critical error, blow up, and shut down permanently. They are systems shaped by voters, courts, legislators, movements, institutions. The United States still holds competitive elections. It still has an independent judiciary. It still has civil society organizations. It still has a press that investigates those in power. It still experiences peaceful transfers of authority. That is not a failed state. That is a contentious democracy. And if the proposition's threshold for saving is no problems whatsoever, then every country on this earth, bar my beloved independent Ulster, is beyond saving. And I would gently suggest that if every democracy looks broken to the proposition, perhaps the issue is not the democracies themselves. The proposition tonight is seductive because they offer a sense of clarity. As I say, it's so over, it's so doomed, we just need to pack it up. But to be hopeless is far easier than to have the mind for reform. Believing a country is beyond saving absolves us of the responsibility, it absolves us of the guilt. It says, why even try? The opposition tonight instead believes in something far more radical, accountability with optimism. Yes, America has these systemic problems. Yes, the institutions need reformed. Yes, inequality and division must be addressed. But the very fact that similar debates are happening in the USA, fiercely, publicly, and legally, proves the system is still somewhat functioning. So I suggest to the proposition tonight, instead of using this easy cop-out, they should instead cop on to reality. Democracies are not saved by liberal woke smoothness. They are saved by civic participation and unrest. The United States has survived civil war, countless depressions, social upheavals, scandals, and cultural transformation. It is not a country that is uniquely fragile. It is a country that is historically resilient. To declare it beyond saving is not realism. It is impatient, and at its heart, this motion is just intellectual laziness. And if history teaches us anything, it is that democracies look weakest right before they reinvent themselves. For those reasons, and with a great deal more faith in the human agency, the opposition tonight declares the United States of America is so back. Up the stars and on to Richmond. Thank you.
Thank you, Ollie, for that very fine speech. I'd now like to invite second on the proposition death to the podium, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Beth Lynham, and my pronouns are you, When I was asked to speak in the motion, or more like begged Ella to speak in the motion, I was McMullen over the speech. And I was thinking, what does beyond saving mean? You know what I mean? Beyond saving, for me, means beyond being able to write a speech in time. But the first thing I thought of was, unfortunately, Ronald Reagan. Yikes. But his quote, "a shining city on a hill." Now, we hear that a lot in reference to America, but what exactly does it mean? It's the idea that, like, no matter the race, religion, or political views of a person, Americans are united under the idea of a United States of America. And it's something that the Americans have been dependent on since the very founding. and into the idea of a nation. So it's not about borders or government, but it's about the people themselves uniting together, coming together, and working together to create something better. Now, better, heavy air quotes, because obviously the US has a history of dodgy race relations and whatnot, but it's not about the truth of the matter, right? I think that's very important to lie out. It's about what people believed, right? And we all know Americans do not always live in the same reality we do, so like let them have the little moment. Because no matter what, Americans believed USA is #1, baby. No, bipartisan. That was Joe Biden saying that. Would he be saying that now? No. Would you expect him to? No. But that was the truth. When the US were committing war crimes like all over the world, everybody was like, God bless the military. I love that. We were watching Top Gun, being like Val Kilmer's really sexy and isn't such pity Tom Cruise is crazy. Now we can't watch it without going like, technically they're committing war crimes, but they're looking really good doing it, guys. Like, let me have my moment. And this is where it comes into, because it's about this idea that it's not whether or not the US is quantitatively beyond saving. It's not if we can point to it going like, oh yeah, but the economy is like growing, or like technically of institutions. It's not about that. It's about the idea behind the United States, and it's about the people who have become disillusioned with the US, as we've seen more and more in kind of recent years, especially in this last Trump presidency. So Ollie mentioned that like there's still that there was always hope when the US is going through struggles in the Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, Wall Street collapsing. That's because they still believed in the fundamental ideas and that there was always pushback. In the Civil War, that was like, yes, like some like dodgy Southerners going against it. No, not my type of Southerner, but that was just some racist plantation owners like being like, lads, like, let us do it. And to be fair to them, they got away with it, like in the end. In Wall Street, that was, I don't know, some dodgy financial issues going on. And again, the government stepped up to help it. Even in the Civil Rights Movement, there was government backing. But what we're seeing in this era is no government backing, because the Republicans are a disaster. We can all say that. But we look at the Democrats, and you're looking at them, and you're going like, right, this cannot be my best option. This cannot be the US's best option. And this is where the failure comes in. The US is not beyond saving because of like statistics. The US is beyond saving because you're kind of looking around going like, right, like the people are unhappy, and you're looking at like what should be an open goal on the ICE issues, on like Israel, on all these kind of core systemic issues the US is having. And you got what, Cory Booker talking for like 24 hours straight. You've got Gavin Newsom like what, killing some homeless people in California and looking good. And then posting a crazy photo shoot. Like, there's nothing really uniting. There's no force stopping them. They're going like, lads, you know, you shouldn't do that. And they're all in the same files at the end of the day. So really, where is the opposite? Stop laughing, Ella. Please, it's distracting. And the thing is, now you see all these failures on both sides of the aisle. And Americans are looking around going like, this cannot be it. Like, this isn't what we've been fighting for. Americans have had no healthcare for ages. They're paying out of the nose for education. They cannot safely go into like schools or concerts or anything. And they've enjoyed all of this because they were told for years and years and years that they were the best country in the world, that it's worth it because they're numero uno. And now they're looking around and they're seeing where it all led to. From the day Ronald Reagan told them trickle-down economics was a thing, the US has gone downhill, and we've reached a boiling point, and we've reached a breaking point, to the point that the US is fundamentally beyond saving. Because people, as Jonathan suggested, it doesn't have to be like, it can be a new US being founded, but there's a point where like, Americans will never feel the same about their country than they did beforehand, even if we see in the recent Olympics. Like, Americans weren't happy, especially if it was men winning. They weren't happy when the US men's team won that Olympic medal. And we saw, like, fun fact, women's sports got a massive rise out of that because they were laughing with Trump. You're seeing more and more now that people are like, oh, actually, no, I'm embarrassed and ashamed to be American, which, you know, 5 years ago would have been a crazy thing. And we're also seeing this with companies. So I'm an aerospace engineer, I love saying that, this is the only thing I got going for me at the moment. But there's Boeing, and Boeing was the kind of airplane company for years. Like, it was the coolest place to be in the 1970s. I assume there wasn't a lot of other cool places to be in Seattle at the time, but like, trust guys, it was the top. But now, what do we look at Boeing? We look at planes falling out of the sky, complete financial mismanagement, and we just see failure. And you look around at all these exciting American companies, and you're like, well, the beers taste horrible. The clothes are like low-key just kind of ugly at the moment. RIP Eagle skirt from the Olympics. You've got just nothing going for the Americans anymore. And I think this is where they're kind of looking around being like, all this sacrifice, all this effort. We went to war for these people and they turned around and they gave us nothing. The VA is being like systemically, whatever, take money underfunded. And I think, yeah, my final point of what is a very messy speech, guys, I'm so sorry, I am beyond saving when it comes to writing speeches, is that this shining city on a hill, we look around and we're like, oh, it's not shining. A little quote, because I always bring up Dublin when I can. Roddy Doyle said about Dublin, it's a big con job. We've been sold the myth of Dublin as a sexy place incredibly well, because it's a dreary little dump most of the time. And Americans are now looking around and going like, God, this is a dreary little dump. And therefore, it is beyond saving. I thank you so much for listening, and I beg you to oppose.
Thank you, Beth, for that very fine speech. And now, second on the opposition, I'd like to invite Victor to the podium, please.
Sorry guys. Hi everyone. Nice to meet you guys and nice to see everyone. Of course, there's irony here. I'm a Nigerian man about to make the motion that the US is, and all this argument and all this bickering that we're having here, it's just noise. So yeah, we're going to first start with analyzing why we're even having this conversation in the first place. And I feel it's all based from reactionist politics. We're all coming with, oh, the US is beyond saving because of based on all the atrocities of ICE, of all this conversation. And what's the irony behind all this is that very people who are saying this, if you look at your countries, it's a mirror, an exact mirror to the exact same thing. I mean, should I talk about people from the United Kingdom? Should I talk about reform on the polls? I mean, what's the difference and what changes what are we really talking about here? What really makes them beyond saving? Regardless of seeing that it's a mirror of every other problem in every other country. Like I always say, the US is a baby. Or when I say baby, or offspring of various European nationalities and cultures. So if you're pointing the finger and saying, well, beyond saving, well, you might have to turn the mirror and look at yourselves and check that reflection properly and see, what are we talking about? Yeah, my point to make here is this. The rise of the far right in many European countries came from two things. Came from economic issues springing up and some social problems, and so we needed parties who could represent your interests. And that's where the far right, or wherever we call that, comes in. I mean, what's the contrast between that and whatever is going on in the US? It's the same issues that we have to analyze. I would say one thing. The only thing the US is beyond saving on is their terrible urban planning. It sucks. Jesus Christ, you guys, it's terrible. I would argue that I would support that point of view. But for everything else, I really just see it's just bickering and rather hypocritical. We're just talking here. I mean, it's like, I don't like going to the past and pointing fingers or saying, oh, you did this, so you shouldn't have a say. But I feel it's the same thing. Everyone evolves. We're just looking at them evolving now. This should be a learning curve for every country in the Western world hemisphere. You shouldn't rely on 100,000 people in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin every 4 years to determine whether the US is cooked or not. You should try your very best to forge your own path forward. A world where you don't have to relay and drop all your entire point of view, or not point of view per se, sorry for that error. You drop all your leverage on one country.
who's on the other far end of the world. I mean, they have every right to think they're better than everyone if you're going to drop your leverage. If you drop your leverage on security matters, if you drop your leverage on every sphere you find yourself in, just look at, that's the audience. If I come today and I give you everything, you coming in here, I'm not giving you everything, but I'm kind of supplying a good chunk of whatever a lot of people are using in tech. Let's not even talk about how much of the cultural exports that we see today in everything we do. If we're doing all that, I have the right to say I'm better than everyone else. I kind of am. And so, looking at Trump's character and his demeanor and everything you see and everything we say and all this we say, it's not different from any other politician we see in the European hemisphere. I can't take questions because this is my first debate, so please mind. I am very bad at that, please. But I totally understand the point here being raised here. There's concern because this is a very big global superpower who is moving around now in an era of instability. A country we have hoped for, a country that was out of changing the rights that a lot of things of the wrongs that happened in Europe. And now the fear that I feel everyone has is that they're teetering and they're moving to the same direction the rest of the Western Hemisphere is moving in, or is in currently. The same pointing fingers at everyone else. They call it the Manchurian principle. I can't pronounce it, please. I am an architect. I can't pronounce that big word. But it's the word where you pick a scapegoat and you push it and say, yeah, this is the cause of our problems. But it's not the exclusive issue in the US, is my point to make. By the words of a Nigerian philosopher and musician, his name is Ashoke, by the way, we're all hypocrites. Everyone else, every country. There's no moral ground to stand. There's none. On that point?
Yeah, if the argument is like, oh, the US isn't cooked because like it's the same as everyone else, don't you have to prove that? Like, what if everywhere is just cooked? Like, what if everywhere is
That's good. That's good. I mean, everywhere's cooked. Everywhere's cooked. I mean, aren't you cooked? I mean, my debate team, when we were on stage, we had two of them were saying, and I was the only one saying, I'm supporting my course. We're all cooked. And I said it there, we're cooked. Everyone is cooked, you guys. That's how life is. And so, to end on this note, I just want to say that all this is to teach us a very important lesson. Don't drop your leverage in one country and hope that one day they will remain the same. And I don't want to hear points on indigenous rights. I don't want to hear it. I don't know why. I mean, look at me. I don't want to hear it. Because we have history. A lot of documented history in the past of it. So everything you've seen and heard, there's a concept and a quote called the oppressed could become the oppressor. I'm Nigerian. I have lived that. I have seen this happen, where people who you've seen oppressed turn to become the oppressor. So everyone and every big bad villain in the picture, I just feel everyone's just a hypocrite. We just have to just get accustomed to the fact that the US is, it's hypocrite. What's our point of view? Those words confuse me a lot, but I want to say that the US is not beyond safe. So thank you so much for hearing my rant.
Thank you, Victor, for that very fine speech. And now, third proposition, I would like to invite Louise to the podium, please.
Okay. While I'm just getting my timer set up here, I'd just like to say that everything I'm about to say is for the sake of debate, not necessarily what I believe. And any FBI agents listening on the Spotify, please let me back into the country over the summer. Okay. To quote the 1960s folk singer Phil Oakes, leaving America is like losing 2 stone and finding a new girlfriend. The liberals on the opposition and in the audience will tell you that the current state of the US is an anomaly. They will insist that the politics were stable until around 2016, and that there's some past state of the US that's worth not only going back to, but worth fighting to save. And to a certain extent, they're right. The US, throughout my childhood, in the cultural center of the Western Hemisphere, a town I'm sure you've all heard of called Round Rock, Texas, I don't remember it being a bad place to live. According to the Census Bureau, homeownership had more or less been on the rise since the 1960s, as had wages and life expectancy. Especially over the latter half of the 20th century, median household income went up, the GDP became the highest in the world, and by the 1990s things were so good that a notion of the end of history was in the air. Essentially a national policy of nothing ever happens, because all the big 20th century reasons to challenge the status quo had evaporated. While this didn't last much into the 2000s, to someone exposed to the Chernobyl's foot that's been the 2020s so far, the early years of the 20th century weren't absolutely horrible, especially on the social front. The US legalized gay marriage in 2015, campaigns to stop racism were gaining momentum, and as the woker over here, I'm sure will tell you, this half-century of overcoming obstacles and progress for domestic citizens certainly looks like a mere flexing of the civic muscles. But to quote my favorite influencer, John Kiriakou, you have to admit that there's one kind of half exception. Just as it's a bit eyebrow-raising that he didn't kill anyone when he obliterated an Iraqi janitor with 47 cruise missiles, it's a bit strange to insist that you need to save a country with such a history of blood and slaughter rather than build something better. If you'll allow me to make this storybook hour for a minute, I just want to read you a few figures from this book that I brought with me. For those who can't see it, the page is titled Anti-Communist Extermination Programs, specifically only counting intentional mass murder and not any kind of deaths from military engagements or unintentional deaths. In Indonesia, from 1965 to 1966, the United States killed 1 million people. In South Korea, from 1948 to 1950, the United States killed 100,000 to 200,000 people. In Nicaragua, from 1979 to 1989, the United States killed 50,000 people. Just to put this into perspective, because those are like mind-boggling numbers, the lowest number on this page is 200 people in Honduras in the 1980s, which is like multiple times the population of this room. And I've already referenced everyone's favorite CIA Reels content creator, so I don't think I need to go into how they were locking people in coffins filled with insects at black sites all throughout all of our childhoods. This certainly exposes the central issue with this opposition's argument, which is that none of them have taken a good long look at what we're supposed to be saving, and none of them have realized just how reasonable the suggestion that the US has been cooked since this 4th of July 1776 is. Let's focus on the last word, saving. We aren't talking about whether we can help the US, whether we can improve the US, or we're talking about whether what currently exists can or should be saved. What is the US, really? After 75 years of global dominance, everyone here likely knows the founding mythology of the US pretty well. A settler colony founded by Western European religious extremists protesting the woke English monarchy's ban on their form of Calvinism, which went on to build an economy based on owning human beings and then broke away from the mothership because they wanted to have a go at cannibalizing the colonies of all the other European empires themselves. The opposition may think I'm being harsh and that the US wasn't all bad because they established democracy or whatever the woke buzzword of the day is, but we desperately need to ask what exactly goes along with this democracy. Perhaps nothing illustrates the dichotomy of American history better than a man who did save America, Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president, the one who was president during the Civil War in the 1860s, and the first president to be assassinated. He's pretty positively viewed. He abolished slavery, he brought the country back to peace and back into one piece through the Civil War. But we have to ask the question again, peace for who? Because Lincoln's presidency was shot through with continued participation in ethnic cleansing operations against the indigenous peoples of the Americas, as part of what I feel pretty confident calling the worst genocide in human history, given that European colonizers killed so many people in the course of building this glorious nation which we are trying to save, that they lowered the temperature of the planet. Lincoln, one of the better American presidents, oversaw the murder of thousands of Navajos and Mescalero Apaches when his government forced them to march thousands of miles off their lands so the white settlers in the burgeoning American West wouldn't have to deal with them. His legacy was also marred by the Sand Creek Massacre, where American troops killed hundreds of Cheyenne and Arapaho people, of whom 2/3 were women and children, just months before that same army would bring an end to America's Civil War. Lincoln has an almost uncontroversial history outside of the house of my weird neighbor back in the holy promised land of Texas. He was a living patron saint of American commitments to freedom and equality, as long as you ignore that the system he worked through created slavery in the first place, and more notably, as long as you ignore the thousands of bodies that he stood on top of. If we say that we're saving the US, we're saying that you can untangle that country from its past. You can save the United States from itself by siphoning out what built it. The woke left wants to save America from what makes America America. And I'm sorry, but I'm just not convinced. What is the US other than hundreds of Cheyennes being massacred by a president who declares he saved the country from the Civil War? Or 1 million dead Indonesians? or the fact that they flew the McDonald's flag at Guantanamo Bay at half-mast when the Queen died. Can it be saved? I mean, listen, I'm not talking about anything extreme. I certainly don't want my family there dead, and I think I already mentioned how badly I want to get back in over the summer. But if we're talking about truly saving the US, righting all of the historical wrongs, it needs reform to the extent that it really can't be called the same country anymore. Can the people we call Americans work within the system to salvage themselves? Can they build a better society for everyone? I don't know. This is a uni society, not the UN Security Council. But you may have noticed that I haven't said the word Trump once in this speech, so I do know that America's problems are too deeply ingrained to speak of saving it, and that any true progress comes from moving forward without the burden of trying to keep imagined glory dragging along behind. In an era of increased polarization, the US simply cannot afford to keep trying to save the ghosts of 47 cruise missiles past instead of worrying about the future. For those reasons, I implore you to impose this motion and think beyond the current confines of the world that we live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise, for that very fine speech. I'd now like to invite the third on the opposition, Ray, to the podium, please.
First off, I'll say flying McDonald's flag to half staff back is a compliment, by the way, to the Queen. Right. Now, at least one person in this room knows that whenever I'm drunk, as I was last night after one drink, it is economical. But as this person knows, whenever I'm drunk, I like to sing songs from certain artists. And while I was still a little drunk this afternoon, and I was taking a shower, one of their songs came on, and I had an epiphany about where to go with this speech, considering I hadn't written anything since 4 o'clock. There have been times that I thought I couldn't last for long, but now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long, long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh yes, it will. A change gonna come. A change always comes everywhere in the world, in every country, in every government, in every organization, even to the litterific. And this is a tried and tested as time goes on. People are always going to rise up and call out things that they don't like and want to change for better or worse. For better or worse, that's subjective. But change happens nevertheless. But is this House really prepared to say that something is beyond saving because it's not what you agree with, because of scandals, because of incompetence? That's giving up, and that's easy to do. It's the easy way out. It's a coward's way out, to put your hands up and say, we don't want to deal with the problems anymore. And I don't think anyone in this house is a coward, bar a few. I'm kidding, guys, don't worry. Now last night, if you were at the drunk debate, something happened. Something that was not okay. I was called a dumb see you next Tuesday by a random NPC who looked kind of like a chia pet. And I was shocked and disappointed that he felt comfortable enough in a litterific setting to say that to a woman he doesn't know, has never interacted with, but like the people in the States right now who call out bad behavior, who take a stand about things that make them angry, not even just that, but when things that are happening which they know do not represent America, do not represent the fundamental ideals that make America and her citizens who they are. Understanding that those actions, the American duty to speak out against wrongs, is what makes them American, is what the country was founded on. That is why I spoke out last night, and in my personal opinion, successfully put him in his place for his shameful behavior, because I know that's not what the litterific is supposed to represent. This is exactly what's happening in America right now. A change gonna come. People across the country speaking out, and when one person speaks out, more join, and more and more and more until it becomes a movement and eventually change takes place. So you can't say that the US is beyond saving when people in America are actively trying to save it. And there are multiple examples of this. You see it on the world stage, where American Olympians are choosing to represent America, the America that they believe in, the good, and they're fighting for it. A change gonna come. You see it taking place in the high echelons of government with counter State of the Unions put on by newly elected Democratic governors who turned Republican states blue this past year and are looking at a sweep in the midterms this year, with Democrats trying everything in their power to curtail what the proposition is arguing is the inevitable, a change gonna come. No,
You can see it nationwide in protests planned across the country to decry the current government's hardline immigration enforcement policies. No, which resulted in people losing their lives. These protests took place not just in cities where its ICE presence is prolific, but in cities where it is minimal. You saw what type of effect that had with the curtailment of ICE agents in Minneapolis, where numbers dropped from 4,000 to 400. No, a change gonna come. You can even see it in a singular city, in one of the birthplaces of America, one of the hubs of the revolution. In Boston over the winter, I got on the green tea line at Park Street, heading to the library as I did every day, and an elderly man, and when I mean elderly, I mean like Mitch McConnell elderly, but he got on the tram at the next stop. And what did I see when I looked over? He was by himself, and he was holding a sign that said, "Ice out, fascist out." And I was moved. I was proud to be an American in that moment. And that was the first time in a very long time where I felt some pride in my country. And even though he was alone on that tram, we all know he was not really alone. He was a singular part, but an important part of an ongoing movement. And that's how all movements start. Last night, it was just me at one moment speaking out against the NPC that looked like a badly painted garden gnome. But after I was done chewing him out, others went up to chew him out. Others called him out on his behavior because they know that that's not what the Olympic is about. Luke Coyle looked like he was going to throw a punch, which I should not encourage, but I know you have my back. It's the same in America. People know what is happening right now is not America. It's not what it represents, and is directly antithetical to the reasons for founding. This House, in good conscience, cannot say what time am I on? Sorry.
20 seconds past 5 minutes.
Okay.
You what?
No. It's the same in America. People know that what is happening right now is not America, is not what it represents, and is directly antithetical to its reasons for founding. This House, in good conscience, cannot say that the U.S. is beyond saving when people are actively trying to save it, actively trying to better it, actively trying to live up to those ideals that make America who she is. Just like last night when people stood up and said, no, this is not what the Luterific represents, this is not who we want to be. Don't write something off just because it is in the process of changing. While it is in the process of people changing it for the better, do not take the easy way out. Do not let this House be full of cowards. Just have patience, just wait, a change gonna come. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray, for that very fine speech. And to close the case for the proposition, I would like to invite Derry to the podium, please.
That's rough. Hi everyone. So we've basically completely missed the entire point of this motion. America is not beyond saving because of the actions of one man or one political party. It is beyond saving because it is a systemic disease, disease within the United States which has grown and spread since 1776. Many today believe that when Trump either leaves office or is ousted, Americans will live in a utopia of sunshine, rainbows and wokeness. While I am a fan of sunshine, rainbows and wokeness, I have to be the party pooper and say that this is just not the case. Second in command Chud, J.D. Vance, announced yesterday that the Trump administration would temporarily halt more than $250 million in Medicaid reimbursements to the state of Minnesota. This was an escalation of top Chud Trump's newly announced war on fraud. The administration will also be imposing a 6-month national moratorium on federal funding for people who need medical equipment now. New enrollments for federal funds such as devices will be halted due to concerns of benefit fraud. But really, what does saving mean? According to the Oxford Dictionary, to save means either to keep up and store something, especially money, which is probably not what we're talking about now, but more appropriately for today, keep safe or rescue something from harm or danger. The USA is beyond saving in this sense from the very beginning. America is not the thing that needs to be saved, it is the rest of the world that needs to be saved from America. The real question we should be asking ourselves, is the US even worth saving? America for centuries has been a vehicle for enslavement, subjugation and exploitation. Slavery was pretty bad, to be fair. I think we can all agree on that one. I'll just quickly share a quote to hammer this point home. Ronald Smith, a 57-year-old black man, recalls his ankles being shackled while he used a sling blade to clear weeds from snake-filled canals alongside sugarcane. If we refused to work, we had to stand on top of a wooden box in the sun. It was called doing the scarecrow, and some guys passed out from the heat. Unfortunately, this quote is not from the 19th century. It is from 1998, and the men who worked alongside Ronald Smith were prisoners. The 13th Amendment, ratified in 1865, abolished slavery and involuntary servitude in the US, except as a punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. 800,000 people in the US right now are working in fields, factories and farms for nothing in return. They work only for the government and private businesses who are more than happy to be supplied with extremely cheap or free labour. Many only earn a few cents an hour, and 7 states, Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, South Carolina and Texas, pay incarcerated individuals nothing for their work. This slavery, but not really slavery situation, is but one example of how these reforms and changes the opposition is promising are nothing but empty promises, and the true issue is America itself. Not the people, not the citizens, rather the systems and institutions which have grown more and more rotten since 1776. I could go on all night about America's various systemic isms like racism, sexism, etc. But I only have 7 minutes, so. You know, the US government treats their citizens horribly, but I'm sure they treat other nations well, right? Puerto Rico, Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, Iran, Guatemala, Lebanon, Iraq, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia and Korea are just a few examples of how the US has mistreated and subjugated foreign nations throughout the years. Anna Louise Strong, in a report to the CIA, writes that when the Americans landed in Korea, the Koreans already had a de facto government. A People's Republic had been declared a day earlier by a Congress of Koreans. General John R. Hodge, commander of the US Armed Forces, dissolved this People's Republic and drove most of its members underground. The US then set up their own government in its place. It was then stated that the US adopted a boys will be boys policy towards camptown prostitution in South Korea. Sexual exploitation of women and young girls had become an arm of US imperialism, and US military involvement in Korea had evolved into a misogynistic sex industry. Yes?
It's not purely just an American military issue that happens in militaries within countries throughout the world.
Yes, but as we were saying earlier, if we talk about other countries, I mean, they could all be cooked. So we're mainly speaking about how America's cooked at the moment. So while they were overthrowing governments and committing heinous acts against its population, it gave Korea something in return. Capitalism. We all love capitalism. A free market. I mean, South Korea, it must be a utopia at the moment. A severe wealth gap exists, with the top 10% earning 20 times more than the bottom. And according to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, South Korea had the highest relative poverty rate among its member states in 2022. Poverty rates are especially high among the elderly, with nearly 40% of citizens aged 65 and older living in relative poverty as of 2023.
On that point,
yeah.
If only we had an example of Korea where they didn't have capitalism to compare it with.
Again, can we say something's good just because their neighbour's worse? You know, I think that's a bit of a moot point, but anyway. This is just one example of how the US has inserted itself into foreign countries' affairs, almost always to the detriment of these countries' people and their self-determination. I ask you today, is the US even worth saving? Personally, no. Please vote in favour of us. I'll buy you a pint later. Trust. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Gary, for that very fine speech. And now to close the case for the opposition and the debate as a whole, I would like to invite Luke to the podium, please.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the time has come. The proposition has come before us here into this citadel of knowledge to you, my most esteemed peers, infected with an insidious notion. They have come before us still ill-burdened by the frantic claims of a world so devoid of critical thought. We must contest them, my friends, for they threaten to corrupt us all with their short-sightedness. Indeed, we must go back to the old house of hope, of trust in our contemporaries, and this charming man will show you how. We will begin by demonstrating that there is yet some life in Uncle Sam's legal and political system, before crushing the proposition's arguments, scattering them to the wind, and embracing the absolute truth, that so long as in one heart rages the righteous fire of indignation, a nation's morality can be saved. So long as in one heart courses a sanguine resolve to face down tyranny and win, a nation may survive. And there is really only one place truly beyond saving in this world, but previous commitments mean I can't say anything given who's coming to stay tomorrow. So, firstly, let's begin by bisecting this American nation, because Massey has very clearly misunderstood what a nation is. It's not just its levers of power, otherwise we'd all be King Charles in here. And although I have the fingers for it, don't accuse me of anything else. But it's not its government alone. It's its legal system, its zeitgeist, the millions who call the land of the free their home. So I'll call into focus two main areas: the popular opinion of the current administration, and the persistence of checks and balances, even when small. Let us begin then with an examination of our fellow man, our cousin, the American. Somewhere there sits a man. Now, let's call him Frank. Now, Frank could be from Illinois, or he could be from Virginia, we don't really know. He could be a metal worker, a foreman at a plant, he could be a doctor or a stock trader. We simply don't know. He could be a conservative, or a Marx-supporting communist, or indeed a rampant capitalist like Derry here. We simply do not know. Now, why is it that we do not know anything else about this regular American other than that he exists? Well, factually, ladies and gentlemen, it's because America is so very diverse. We can't say what's the regular or the norm. But there is one thing that we can say concretely. That with Donald Trump 17 points underwater in opinion polling nationwide, we can conclude that Frank probably isn't a very big fan of the current president. And this is not just academic, for we can see in the real world that a coalition of Franks, of regular people, are prepared to cut off the head of the Trumpian Leviathan. Why else would he be trying so hard to get so many to gerrymander? No. Later. Why else would those words, "they're probably going to impeach me," spew from his bloated mouth if he did not see a great popular tide rising? Think back to what I said, ladies and gentlemen, that where there remains the ember of resistance in one heart, a nation may be saved. And now gaze upon the purifying inferno of the common man united. Resistance burns brightly in their eyes. We have seen it in Minneapolis. All that they require is the cleaver to rend the killing blow, an election to save their great state. My friends, if that is all they require, then they are not beyond saving, for they stand in its offing. Henry?
Yeah, okay, so if the great snake or whatever falls, it is the Democrats who will take the snake's place. Can you name just one Democrat senator who isn't my hot compromise? Just one.
Well, Derek, not Derek. So similar. They're so very similar. Well, I think you actually, as your good friend Beth does, I think you misunderstand American history. It's not simply a two-party system. As we've been seeing more and more, the parties can replace one another. It will be a fight for the very essence of the nation, but to say that they cannot do it when they have done it previously is a complete farce. We've seen the rise of people like Zoran Mandani. We can see that they can change. The fact of this two-party system of, oh well, Chuck Schumer's going to be my next president, glory to AIPAC. That's just a farce. So let us now look at their legal system. Now I'll concede it's a bit faulty. It's a bit like me after 4 Loki. I don't really know what I'm going to say, but we'll see what comes out. Well, my friends, recent Supreme Court rulings have proven that there's at least some fight left. The ruling on tariffs sent the sunburnt skinwalker stumbling and bumbling. He had a terrible press conference, might I add, which is an achievement given the drunk debates that I witnessed last night. He acts now upon an act where he has a time limit imposed upon his power, where we thought it was once as vast as his gut. My friends, a legal system is far more than its judiciary, and the continued pressure to release the Epstein files and the squirming of Donald Trump and his cronies in the face of Congress show that there are yet signs of life within the old dog. My friends, you do not put down Old Yeller because he's had a bad couple of years. Not when he's done so much for you. Not when he helped you eradicate the fascists and storm the beaches. That's simply completely farcical. Now, let's move on to Massey. Massey is the least charming man in this debate, if I am the most charming. Now, Jonathan, My dear Jonathan, when you mentioned the French, you already lost this debate. Jonathan misunderstands the very nature of this motion, for instead of getting an account of why America should not be or cannot be saved, we got a history lesson, which was immediately demolished by the good first speaker, showing that brinkmanship is essentially the bread and butter of America. I mean, the entire place is like a political Las Vegas, really. You know, America is a phoenix, and it is high time we recognise that. And by the way, did I hear Beth say that truth doesn't matter, that facts and statistics doesn't matter? Then what does? Like, if I turned around here and said 100 billion Americans are going to march on the Capitol tomorrow, can you believe me, Beth? Is that just, can I say whatever I want now if statistics don't matter? And it's funny, because I believe that Beth could do with a history lesson. She's been making out like government funding in the US has never been cut before, but come on, it absolutely has. It was always austerity before prosperity, Hoover before Roosevelt. That has been how America has operated for years. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, it's important to recognise the time that we are in. I get we all have a burning rage toward America, but it must be tempered. We cannot let the claret call of this motion cloud our judgment. Our fellow man languishes upon the crucible, but he is not beyond saving. Undoubtedly the US can be saved, for its people remain the same ones that they were when they helped us purge tyranny from our lands just under a century ago. Its legal systems yet live, and we have seen no evidence for the US failing in that respect. We must simply reject this motion and embrace the inherent goodness of our fellow man. Bow before the altar of hope. Trust in your fellow man. For, to paraphrase Abraham Lincoln, a house divided against itself can never stand. So do not divide your house. Do not condemn your fellow man, for in doing so you condemn yourself. To quote the great Jeff Buckley, and indeed me, going for my 9th Four Logo of the night, it's never over. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Luke, for that very fine speech, and to all our speakers, I'm sure you'll agree as a house that it was a very high quality debate. I'd like to congratulate the two main speakers at the table as well. And now it's time for questions. This is your chance as members of the House to interrogate some of the points which you've heard tonight. First of all, do I have any questions for the proposition? I'll go for Josh.
Yes, the proposition, y'all continually brought up how uncooked America is, but I never saw once a discussion about the people who actually run the country, the civil servants and bureaucrats, the people that go into work every single day. Being one myself, having the words etched upon my skin, I believe that those who come to work every day that will be here, the 74-year-old postmasters that are going to delivered the mail 10 years ago, that will deliver the mail 100 years from now. Those are the people that are going to be here. Why is there no discussion of those people that come in every single day? It's the discussion of the politicians instead of the policy. Why not the people that are going to be there today, tomorrow, 1,000 years from now?
Thank you. Someone from the proposition?
I can respond to that. I think there's a lot to say about that. Is that, first of all, there's only so much you can do as a civil servant. At the end of the day, you're working for the government and you're working for the top man, and it's difficult to step out of that system. Secondly, as we've seen, I think it was the Department of Justice had like all of its top lawyers walk out. So there isn't also like quality civil servants left in that. And like thirdly, there's a lot of shutdowns recently, like more so every shutdown recently has been a record-breaking shutdown in the US, which has caused civil servants to be out of work and out of thing. And like, my work as a civil servant, not the Americans, but like I get how important it can be, but it's putting a lot of expectation on like people who don't actually have as much power as we would like them to, and like are working within a broken system. And I think that's the kind of thing where it's like, it's beyond saving because there's nothing they can do, and the only thing they can successfully do to put pressure on the government is walking out. That's the only thing that's been mildly successful for them.
Thank you, Beth. Rebuttal from the opposition?
Yeah, so I thank you for your question, and I believe it highlights a real fault line within their argument. Not once did they mention the common man. I mean, if your main line of argument is, guys, this politician's a bit weird, you could do that throughout most of history now, come on, from Bismarck to now, I mean, they've all been a bit tapped. The idea that you haven't referenced the common man, and indeed civil servants are meant to remain impartial, and indeed their resignation, it does not, mean any acquiescence. It's in fact a major sign of protest, and it's a show that some people, or at least good operators, who will go into place once more to make sure that this country is defended and its ideals are preserved. The civil service at the moment, obviously I can't quite comment on the state of that, but the idea that these civil servants just ride off into the sunlight, when they leave government, it is because they're going to work for something else. They're going to try to help their nation in the best way that they know how. If they cannot find it within government, in fact, then they can find it somewhere else, and that's what they're all going to do. The fact that your side didn't necessarily mention even the smallest, Joe Blogs, frankly, proves the point that you guys are just targeting, frankly, a very, very mad politician, but just one politician on the list.
Thank you, Luke. I'll take one more for the proposition. Flynn?
So the title of the motion is "The US is beyond saving." How can you prove without a shadow of a doubt that there is not a single way that the US can be saved? Because you'd have to rule out every possible method.
Someone from the proposition? Any time today?
Yeah. I mean, this is giving me PTSD flashbacks to I don't buy your case when it comes to that's also not the point of rhetoric, guys, as you have told me. But the thing is, we've seen over the years, and as a lot of us brought in, that it's been since the very founding, they've gone through every single system of whatever. And what you see is not the every single possibility. You see that no matter what, things stay the same. Fundamentally, we talk about all these, we talk about the Civil War. As Derry mentioned so eloquently, what changed fundamentally outside the saying that oh, this type of slavery doesn't exist, but we've changed it now, so in essence nothing has changed. The banks still, the wealth inequality in the US is crazy. If you look at civil rights movement, it's kind of crazy to compare yourself to the American justice system after a couple of photos goes bro, spoon's going a little bit too crazy. A couple of slurs being said, everyone. I'm just saying the US is known for their dodgy dodgy justice system. Two-tier justice, Luke. Anyway.
So I feel that I've got to vindicate myself here. Of course, Beth is known for firing the insults at me. I once got called a gay fascist by her, but we'll move on from that. I thought you were about to say I'm also a fascist there. That's where I was going. We're going to leave out whatever that was, and we'll bring it back to the actual question, which was: have you actually shown beyond a reasonable doubt, or even a shadow of a doubt, that the US is beyond saving? And you haven't. You gave us 3 different history lectures, 2 different ethical considerations, but never once did you say X, Y, and Z. Derry came in and had to clean up for you guys. The fact of the matter is that when it is the 4th speaker that has to bring in the points about nothing has quite changed, and the rest of you are kind of going, guys, do you want to hear about some interviews that happened? I don't quite understand, guys. What I'm going to use a BP term. I don't understand what you're weighing is here. I don't understand what you're unpacking. When you're essentially giving us a history lesson, I don't understand how you've proved that this is going to happen or this has happened. The point about the justice system, or what slurs have I said? I asked that one.
Don't answer.
It's a dangerous comparison to make.
What is
Between the 4 locals and the justice system.
Well, they're both erratic, aren't they? I don't understand where that was going. I got a bit worried there, but yeah, still don't.
He has said no slurs, guys, don't worry.
Glad to get that cleared up. Thank you. Questions for the opposition now, if we have them? I will go for Henry.
Oh, come on then. So I think what a really interesting one is Trump would be gone or whatever. But the fact is the US, and Luke said Zoran Mamdani, that's great, but I don't think when you compare Zoran Mamdani to cross-party support for Israel, cross-party support for immigration, Obama deported more people in his 2 terms on aggregate than Trump did in his first term. Like, there are cross-party oil consensus issues where the US is on all bases, on all levels, like, cooked. And your argument was essentially like, oh, you know, the Republicans like will be gone soon, and as Jonathan rightly said, they'll literally be replaced by people who on the big issues are the same, but kind of like gay rights. So how do you reckon with that? How do you defend the Democrats? How do you say that the Democrats aren't the other option?
A response from the opposition?
Was it pointed at anyone?
Go whoever wants it.
Yeah, go ahead.
You go ahead.
Oh, okay. Hi. I feel my point of view here, or how I answer that question is, like I made the argument as well, is, yes, the topic is about are they beyond saving, are they not beyond saving? But I feel the critical argument here is, what is even the definition of the morality even in this sense? If every other country on this planet does the exact same thing, and it's just not published on a very big scale. I mean, I really shouldn't, like, you hear of conflict in some places, and you're so surprised this is happening. First, when I was reading for the debate in bed, for an instance, why is Hungary split between 2 enemies of the state, Russia and Ukraine? It's so weird. But it's how very interesting global politics is, and how geopolitics is. I have always said it. We should move from a stance of relying on 100,000 people or the few people who always determine the positioning of the US every 4 years. It's very tiring. It's very, very tiring to have this conversation every time. And we're always centering them on platforming them every time and having this conversation about where, you know, their morality stands, how they support Israel, how they support this. And everybody does the same thing. Everyone. It's just not done on a large scale, or they just lost momentum and they have a big dog in power now. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question in any way, or yeah.
Thank you, Victor. Proposition?
I think this comes to the fundamental flaw in America, and it's something I think throughout this debate the opposition are very optimistic, and I'd like to think I'm more pragmatic than that. I mean, Ray kept saying a change going to come, but the changes that the US needs to save it are so large that it is no longer the US, it is a new thing altogether. It is like when we got rid of the Third French Republic and replaced it with the Fourth, or when we got rid of the Fourth French Republic and replaced it with the Fifth. We need such a large change to the system to upend these deep-rooted things. When you've got Republicans going out and kidnapping Americans in unmarked vans, and the best the Democrats can do is go, well, make sure the vans aren't unmarked. Like, there's something very wrong. Luke says at some point, Luke says if Old Yeller gets old, you don't take him out the back and shoot him. And sure, maybe he's right, but eventually Old Yeller dies and you need a new dog. America, maybe we don't take it out the back right now and shoot it, but it's going to die. It is declining, it is rotting from within, and we need there will come a reckoning and there will come a new American system.
Thank you, Jonathan. One more for the opposition, yes, Ash?
I think a key part of this debate is about American exceptionalism. And I think that Prof. done a good job of saying that what makes the US unique is American exceptionalism. And what is defining of American exceptionalism is the separation of powers. And I think the Trump administration has clearly showed that they want to remove the separation of powers and no longer wants to fight the Democratic Party on an equal playing field. What do you think, like with this existential threat that Trump has on the separation of powers, do you genuinely think that then this American exceptionalism that represents the US is therefore not beyond saving?
Thank you. Someone from the opposition to respond?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Basically, Trump wants to remove separation of powers. Do you think that that is a good enough argument to say that this indicates that the US may be beyond saving because separation of powers is so important to American exceptionalism?
Right, I'm going to bite through that one. Okay. No, I agree with what you're saying, and that I certainly know that Trump wants to do that. But I point you to my, sort of long winding point about the legal system, which is that the judiciary is, in the United States at least, is fiercely protective over its own power. It will do a lot to a lot of people, but it will not sabotage its own power. It will not let Donald Trump take its own power. There's certain instances where you could say that America's leaning toward more a mingling of powers, but we have that here. We do. The fact that, we used to, we Americanized ourselves with the Tony Blair, sort of debacle, but, it wasn't a debacle. But I had to quickly say that before I get accused of something else bad. I get what you're saying, and that I think Donald Trump will like to do that, but whether or not he has the ability and the chip with the Supreme Court, who's already voted against him numerous times on key policy issues, I don't believe that he has that kind of motion. I just don't think he has it in him.
Thank you, Luke. Rebuttal from the proposition.
Yeah, I think I get exactly what Ash means. I talked about American exceptionalism. I think Luke is just misinterpreting my speech on purpose, I believe. But the thing with it is that there is a mingling of power, and the US was history lecture, whatever. But the US was founded in opposition to the Brits. And if we look at the US and everything it stands for and all, the US is a concept, which is kind of what we were hitting at. It's not as a country, but as is the US beyond saving as a concept, which is kind of what we were all running through. You do see it, and I think to say, it going more towards the UK, is it failing and whatnot, but it's also that we see that in certain key areas, the Supreme Court has gone against Trump, but in other key areas, it supported Trump. Brett Kavanaugh is an alleged sexual offender. The Irish Catholic one is kind of crazy. They've put in over the years. Sorry, I can't remember her name. Amy Coney Barrett doesn't believe in a lot of things. You see over the years that it has become more pro, not even Republican, but more far right in what their beliefs are. But you also are forgetting that it's 3 branches of its executive, and the third one is the Senate and whatnot. And what you've seen in there is no matter what, they back Trump to the end. Even the Democrats, they talk for 25 hours and achieve nothing. They mark some cars, and at the end of the day, the justice system is only as strong as the people it convicts. And what we're seeing now, which is what the US is uniting against, is not that the US is we should save it, which I know to talk kind of about the point of the common man. There's only so much the common man can do. You know what I mean? We've seen time and time again in countries that have failed, that were beyond saving, that it wasn't enough that the people stood up, because what do you replace that power vacuum with? What's there for? And the common man, I'm a common woman, I'm not qualified to run a country. What's the alternative? And I think that's also what we're discussing. But to wrap up the point, what we're seeing is, in the failing of the justice system is, guys, the files. And what we're seeing is that at the highest levels, nobody's getting justice. And that's also really rotting. Even MAGA are sitting there going bro, we voted you in on releasing the files. And what we're seeing is you're protecting everybody. So I think we're seeing failings from every system, and it is the mingling of powers and the failing of the justice system at every level. I think to point out to cherry pick examples and be but look at this worked. I'm not a law student, but I could Google right now and find 10 cases that say the justice system failed in the US. So I think I don't really get your point of being look at this one specific, but don't look at the rest. Yeah.
Thank you, Beth. And finally, I'll take one last abstaining question. So for the reminder to the House, this is a question put evenly to both the proposition and the opposition. So I'll take your abstaining question.
I'm going to kill you.
In a hypothetical world where Trump takes a third term, because let's not pretend he cares about checks and balances, what do you think that looks like for America? Are they cooked or are they raw?
Thank you. I'll allow the proposition to go first.
I think what I said in my speech is pretty clear. America is nowhere close to Nazi Germany, but the process that they are going down, the path that they are following, is scary similar. And so I think that the sort of demonization of the others and the sort of coalescing of power around a certain few individuals and the abuses of the rights of the citizenry are just going to get worse and worse and worse, and each step will be worse than the last until democracy in the US is gone altogether.
Thank you, Jonathan.
I'll answer if that's good. I'm going to get a little bit Marxian with it and say that I would argue that sometimes, as I mentioned in my speech, a democracy needs tested, it needs to argue, it needs to be pushed to its breaking point to then reinvent itself. And I would say what we're seeing with Trump is that the increased polarization is shifting more people, yes, to the far right, but you also have a rise in leftists such as Mandani getting voted in and kind of being more, it almost normalizes a more woke, as we were mentioning, a woke country. So I think you need to struggle in order to get through it, and that doesn't necessarily mean the US is beyond saving, it just means it's going to enter a new phase.
Thank you. That was a fairly quick one. So for my own personal safety, go on ahead, Ellen.
Thank you. So this is a question I've had to adjust because Daniel, I don't know if you projected me every time I put my hand up, but now it's an outstanding question. I just wanted to, if you look at the history of America, I don't mean to be, to all the Americans in the room, I don't mean to be really anti-American, but just give me a second. Was America ever not cooked? Like it was fine, on, like if you look at history or the musical Hamilton, they were 2 steps away from becoming a monarchy back in the day, guys. Like it wasn't, and they were fighting on slavery and like the ideals of democracy and freedom. Like if you look at the Constitution, their ideals, they're not like enshrined the way that they seem to be enshrined. And the layout of the Constitution is whacked, like it's crazy. Like if you look at what they're prioritizing crazy stuff before they get to your civil freedoms. So the case I would have run, if I was in the proposition, is you can't save something that's always been cooked. But I want to know what both sides think. I'm saving myself. I want to know what both sides think because it has, like, are we saving something if there's nothing to save? Because I don't know, I'm yet to be proven that America was ever what it was made out to be, or ever pitched to be initially.
Thank you. I'll take a quick response from the opposition first.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think Luke put out pretty eloquently that we're talking about the 330 million people that live in the United States, and to say that something is beyond saving just because it was founded on some dodgy morals back in 1776 does kind of a disservice to, I think someone said, it was maybe the first proposition actually, but that it was a country that's born of minorities and it's born of immigration, and it just does a disservice to everyone who lives that life. We're talking about 330 million people, not, the orange man in charge.
Thank you, Ollie. A response finally from the proposition.
Yeah, I think that question, the key flaw in the opposition's argument is that we're not talking about is the geographical piece of land which America is on going to self-destruct. America is not like, it's defined by like what the state is and what the country is. And so we're not talking about are those, what is it, 300,000 million, I don't know the population of my own country. However many people there are in America, are those people cooked? We are talking about the state and the institutions. I mean, there's been other countries which we have said are like beyond saving and which have ended, and it hasn't meant that the people there are cooked or that the piece of land has been destroyed. I mean, I think that we all agree that, for instance, like the British Raj doesn't exist anymore, but Southeast Asia is still there. So we're talking about whether it can change. We're not talking about whether it's going to be like completely eviscerated. And it's kind of a silly argument to say, oh well, it can't. America will change and turn into a completely different country, but it's being saved, guys. Because is it America anymore if it's completely changed so beyond recognition?
Thank you, Louise. No back and forth, I'm afraid. And so concludes the question section of our debate, which brings us on to the all-important verdict. It is your chance as members of the House to decide who's won this debate on the metrics of presentation, rhetoric, argument, teamwork, and engagement. So, have all those who would like to vote for the proposition on the vote on speaker ability to raise their hands now, please.
Yeah.
28, yes. And can I have all those who'd like to vote for the opposition on the vote on speaker ability raise their hands now, please? And can I have all those who would like to abstain from the vote on speaker ability to raise their hands now, please?
Wait, can we change this round? Fuck's sake, John.
No, it's not.
Nine? Mr. Secretary, good luck. Can I have the results from the vote on speaker ability, please?
Yes, with 28 votes for the proposition, 28 votes for the opposition and 9 abstentions. Everybody wins and goes with that.
Yes, united we stand, divided we fall. We are all agreed as members of the House tonight that both sides were just class, weren't they? So round of applause again to you all. And of course, you're all very welcome here tonight. You'll notice, and I've seen a lot of you admiring our term cards. I'd like to draw your attention to those and to the QR code at the back of the room. Please scan that to become a part of our community. We're very active. As you all know, we've had an event on every day this week, and we will continue to be as active throughout the second semester, so please join us for that. And just to reiterate some dates coming up, some important dates. If you wish to shape the future of our society, please put yourself forward for the AGM we are hosting on the 16th of March, with nominations open from the 2nd to the 9th of March. We also then, as a celebration of our great society, have the Conversazione. Please come and claim your Conversazione card by signing up and grabbing yourself a ticket for that wonderful event. And with that, I would like to open the floor to council announcements. So members of council, yes, Madam Internal.
So well done again, guys. Everyone was amazing, particularly the two maiden speakers, Victor and Derry, who I think deserve another round of applause. You guys are amazing and definitely not judged, so I think it's great. So next week's debate, guys, it's very exciting. It is a collab. We have this House Regrets the Rise of Book Talk with QUB Book Club, and we have representatives from QUB Book Club here, where they're sitting Elizabeth and Ash. Hi, there's Ash. Elizabeth was here. I don't know where she is now. So we're going to have a book talk collab, which is going to be really, really, really fun. If you want to speak on that, talk to me. That will be a popular one because we have to meet requirements to have people from the book club as well. But if you really want to speak on that debate, please come and talk to me about it. Henry's ID. So the IDs this weekend, he left to meet his boyfriend. Boring, but the IDs this weekend, guys, it should be really, really class. It's a really cool thing for the society. We haven't had an ID in a long time. Don't know the specifics, you have to ask Calvin. It's a really cool thing. It's an inter-varsity competition. We have over 100 participants from different universities from all over the UK and the Republic of Ireland. So it's a really, really cool thing. I know a lot of you won't be there. It's a weekend. A lot of people go home, and also turning to the NPC on a Saturday is pretty grim. But it'll be a really fun competition. Fun fact, it's beside the morgue. That's where the rooms are. So really showing off Queen's Steel universities. But yeah, otherwise, well done to all the speakers today.
Yes, make sure to join us next week for that debate, and we'll sure to be a real page turner. And of course, we have our IV coming up. If you'd like to watch the final of that, that will be on Sunday. Details in the WhatsApp group, which is all the more reason to join. Any other council announcements? Mr. Dance.
Yes, good evening, everyone. We had a very good look talk there on Tuesday with Danny Mulhall. Thanks to those who came. Our next look talk is on March 9th. We have Mary McAleese. Now, she is the former President of Ireland, obviously a very esteemed figure. She will be coming to the Society at the Canada Room, and there's a few more details just yet to be confirmed. The day after, we have the Active Union debate. That is our great debate that the Society is hosting. We have political representatives coming in as well as historians, with William Crawley, the BBC broadcaster, chairing that. So I welcome you all to come along. We have a very, very busy schedule to let her, and that's a good thing. Thank you very much.
Yes, us here, please join us for those events. Do I have any other council announcements, Madam Vice President?
Yes, after the Acts of Union debate on Wednesday, the 11th of March, we have our second Muriel Campbell Women's Subcommittee debate. All the more reason to scan the QR code to sign up to speak on it. That debate is "This House Would Be a Spinster," which should be very fun. But yes, please scan the QR code and register to sign up.
Thank you. And finally, our philosopher of wines, Mr. Social, is not here tonight, but he would want me to encourage you. As you all know, we are very much a social society. We do not all gather at Glencordy and go home our separate ways. We all go out for a drink and a bit of crack together. So I would implore you all to join us at the Botanic Inn tonight for an amazing social. And of course, as is tradition, if I could have our wonderful speakers to the front, I'll see all the rest of you at the front and council behind. I'm proud to call this meeting adjourned.